History is not what we've been told. You won't believe what we have uncovered about the ancient Egyptians and giants lurking in the Grand Canyon. What if we tell you that the Smithsonian Institution has been covering up a shocking discovery that could rewrite the history books? Are you ready to explore the forbidden secrets of the Grand Canyon? The truth is out there, and we've got the evidence to prove it. So let's get into the video. The Phoenix Gazette carried two reports in March and April 1909 on the discovery of a large underground citadel that had been buried in a cave in the Grand Canyon. The stories focused on the finding of the citadel. The first piece, published in March, makes merely a passing reference to the explorer G.E. Kincaid and his travels along the Colorado River. The article also mentions that he uncovered several fascinating archaeological finds. However, it does not provide any additional information on these findings. The second story provides a more in-depth account of Kincaid's journey down the Colorado River, during which he came across an old city concealed within caves that had been constructed by humans rather than being formed naturally. Kincaid described the city as having an Oriental or Egyptian taste, despite the fact that the Southwest is home to many Pueblo ruins and cities that belong to many different tribes of Pueblo people. Mummies, a shrine with a figure sitting cross-legged, holding a lotus flower or lily in each hand, hieroglyphic writings, and battle weapons and copper instruments with sharpened edges as hard as steel was reported to be hidden within the intricately carved tunnels and caves, as well as within the city itself. According to Kincaid's estimates, 50,000 individuals had at one time made their homes in the tunnels and caves. The Smithsonian Institution was reportedly involved in the research and analysis of the site, as the article goes on to explain. These are the only two stories that have ever been published on the topic, and the majority of inquiries result in fruitless pursuits. The most pressing concern is whether or not the accounts were fabricated. Possibly they were an April Fool's Day joke. On his journey down the river, John Wesley Powell, the man credited with being the first person to explore the Grand Canyon, made the observation that there were a great number of caves in the area. A well-traveled road, ruins, hieroglyphics, and shards of broken pottery were among the artifacts that he and his crew unearthed while on their expedition. Since Powell's initial discovery of the Grand Canyon, it has been the subject of a great deal of research over the years. Within the boundaries of Grand Canyon National Park, archaeologists have discovered over 400 Native American sites that date back as long as 12,000 years. Is it possible that Kincaid got the beginnings of the cave all wrong, and that it was actually something else entirely? Indeed, such is the case. The description of mummies and the Asian influence that Kincaid provides in the newspaper article, on the other hand, raises certain questions that can't be ignored. The Smithsonian Institution does not appear to have any records of such an expedition, nor does it appear that they took part in any excavations of underground cities within the Grand Canyon. The Smithsonian Institution, on the other hand, has organized a number of trips to investigate the Native American sites located across the Southwest and in the Grand Canyon. It is quite improbable that a building that is dedicated to the study and comprehension of history would keep such a discovery a secret. But if cultures from the Middle East or Asia did make their way to North America approximately 4,000 years ago or so, it would unquestionably cause the history of our globe to be rewritten in an entirely different way. It is also intriguing that several of the attractions in the park have Egyptian names, such as the Tower of Set, the Tower of Ra, the Horus Temple, the Osiris Temple, and the Isis Temple. Additionally, there are locations in Haunted Canyon with names such as Cheops Pyramid, the Buddha Cloister, the Buddha Temple, Manu Temple, and Shiva Temple. On land owned by the government, the region that is rumored to be the site of the buried city is point of fact, restricted to the general public. What Kincaid had to say about the location was as follows. I was about 42 miles upstream from the El Tovar Crystal Canyon when I noticed stains in the sedimentary layer about 2,000 feet above the riverbed on the east wall of the canyon. There was no path leading to this spot, but I was eventually able to make it there despite the many obstacles. The entrance to the cave was situated on a shelf that prevented it from being seen from the river below. A Hopi Indian mythology claims that their ancestors previously lived underground in the Grand Canyon until the people of One Heart and the people of Two Hearts began to struggle against one another. The leader of the people, who had only one heart, caused a tree to sprout and eventually grow through the cave ceiling. The people of the One Heart sent a messenger to the Temple of the Sun in order to ask for a blessing of peace, goodwill, and rain. However, the messenger never came back. According to the Hopi legend, the messenger will one day return, and when he does, the ancestral lands and dwellings of the Hopi will be given back to them. Is there a link that can be made between North America and either Asia or Egypt? If that's the case, has the truth been buried by someone? Or maybe this mysterious city is actually a local American site that has been found and is now being guarded for the safety of the local people. This could be the reason why no additional articles have been published on the topic. In any scenario, the reasons behind the publication of the stories in the Phoenix Gazette continue to be a mystery. Since its founding in 1846, the Smithsonian Institution has been an integral component of the American environment. Visitors often come to the institution with a few misunderstandings, which may be because of the diversity and scope of the collections it houses. As a result, on the occasion of the Smithsonian's anniversary, we would like to take this opportunity to set the record straight regarding a number of urban legends, myths, and misconceptions, and try to clear out doubts people have. Myth number 1. The Hope Diamond is considered to be evil. It's just not true. A series of tragic occurrences that were completely accidental befell its operators. Background information. The so-called curse is said to have been started by jeweler Pierre Cartier as a marketing technique in the hopes of persuading Washington, D.C. socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean to purchase the stone. Cartier fabricated a wild tale about the origin of the jewel and how the stone inflicted misery on whoever handled it. The purchase of the jewel by McLean was mentioned in the New York Times on January 29, 1911, along with a repetition of Cartier's dreary story. McLean had the jewel at the time. The tale was picked up by a number of other newspapers throughout the years, which assisted in maintaining the myth surrounding the stone. The ensuing disasters that befell McLean, such as her husband leaving her for another woman and eventually passing away in a mental institution, a car hitting and killing her son, and her daughter passing away as a result of an overdose of drugs, all contributed to the notion that the stone was cursed. Following McLean's passing, the diamond was acquired by jeweler Harry Winston, and in 1958 gave it to the National Museum of Natural History of the Smithsonian Institution. The jewel was transported to the museum via registered mail, and it was brought there by postal worker James Todd. The following year, Todd endured a number of calamities, including the breaking of his leg, the passing of his wife and dog, and the destruction of his home in a fire. Todd handled it in stride. If the hex is supposed to affect the owners, he continued, then the public should be having the bad luck, not me, he said. The public's reaction to the museum's acquisition of the jewel, which will serve as the exhibit's centerpiece, was noticeably cooler than that of the museum itself. One user wrote that the whole country will suffer if the diamond were to be accepted by the Smithsonian Institution. The curators of the museum, on the other hand, do not believe that the stone is unlucky in any way. Over the course of the previous half-century, the Smithsonian Institution has welcomed millions upon millions of tourists because of the Hope Diamond. Myth number 2. The Smithsonian Institution searched Mount Ararat for Noah's Ark. There has never been any archaeological investigation done on Mount Ararat by the Smithsonian. In fact, no one knows for certain whether or not the mountain is in fact the location where Noah's Ark landed. An explanation can be found in the book of Genesis, which states that after the flood, Noah's Ark found a safe haven in the mountains of Ararat. This description has prompted many people to concentrate their search for the Ark on the mountain that is now known as modern-day Mount Ararat, which is also referred to as Mount Masis and Agri Dagi. In addition, aerial images of the location show a peculiar configuration that is referred to as the Ararat anomaly. Some people believe that this formation is the Ark. Myth number 3. The Department of Antiquities refused to accept a supposed item from prehistoric times. The Smithsonian Institution does not house an antiquities department, to my knowledge. The backstory is as follows. In the middle of the 1990s, a creative graduate student produced a letter under the name Harvey Rowe, curator of antiquities, refuting the claims of an amateur paleontologist who was convinced he had uncovered indications of prehistoric life in his own backyard, a Malibu Barbie doll. The letter was sent in an attempt to discredit the claims of the amateur paleontologist. A version of the letter appears here. In 1994, the letter started making its way around the internet, and it spread like wildfire. giving people a good laugh all around the World Wide Web. Myth number 4. Egyptian ruins were found in the Grand Canyon by the Smithsonian Institution. The fact is that it did not. Context: on April 5, 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a story with the following headline: Explorations in Grand Canyon, mysteries of immense rich cavern being brought to light. Jordan is enthused. Remarkable find indicates ancient people migrated from Orient. The article focused on the recent discoveries that had been made in the canyon. The article includes the account of a person named G.E. Kincaid, who claims that while he was going down the Green and Colorado rivers by himself, he uncovered evidence of an old civilization, which may have originated in Egypt. According to the narrative, an archaeologist from the Smithsonian called S.A. Jordan accompanied Kincaid when he went back to the site to explore it. On the other hand, it seems that the Arizona Gazette was the only newspaper that reported the article at any point in time. There is no evidence in the records to suggest that either Kincaid or Jordan ever existed. Myth number 5. Betsy Ross was the one who embroidered the Star-Spangled Banner. Mary Pickersgill was the person who sewed the flag that served as the inspiration for our national anthem. Betsy Ross, a skilled seamstress who went on to become a revered figure in American popular culture, is widely regarded as the first person responsible for the creation of the first flag to bear the emblem of the United States. William J. Canby, Ross's grandson, was the one who, in 1870, wrote down a story that a relative had told him in 1857, which was a long time after Ross had passed away. This was the beginning of the mythology. According to the legend, George Washington went to Betsy Ross in the spring of 1776 with a sketch of a flag and asked her to design a flag that would serve as the national standard. The tale of how the national flag came into existence at a time when the United States was getting ready to commemorate its centennial grabbed the minds of many people. There is, however, no paperwork that links Ross with making the first flag, and the events detailed in Canby's narrative took place a year before the enactment of the Flag Act, which is legislation that prescribes the style and substance of the national flag. Canby's account also takes place a year before the Flag Act was passed. The Star-Spangled Banner, which is currently on exhibit at the National Museum of American History, following major conservation efforts, is occasionally the subject of inquiries from guests of the museum on whether or not it is an example of Ross's work. Mary Pickersgill was the one who sewed that flag, which was flown over Fort McHenry during the Battle of Baltimore in 1814. This event served as the inspiration for Francis Scott Key to write the poem that would later become our national anthem. That's all we have for the video today. We will be right back with more. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.